And this is the very first episode for 2024. This is our fifth season of Farms Advice podcast, and I say our because it's a bit of a community now of sharing knowledge. And why you're on here is a little bit about how we like to start the year as the podcast, and hopefully encourage farmers to be a bit healthier with a healthy episode to kick it off. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jack. No, I think it's great to start off the year. Obviously, we've all come off Christmas, and hopefully most people grabbed a bit of time off in January. So often the diet goes out the window and a bit much beer, so it's probably pretty timely.
I understand. And you're fat farmers. We're two fat farmers. Well, actually, I'd probably go the other way. I've lost a bit of weight and I need to eat a bit more, which that will come up in conversation of my questions that I've got for you later on in the piece. But introduce yourself, Ben. You're a farmer. Whereabouts are you and what are you producing?
I'm a fifth generation farmer. We farm out of Maitland on the Yorke Peninsula in South Australia. Came home in the 80s to a small family farm, married at 25, and we've got a couple of kids who have better educated than me and gone to uni, and they're now working over east. So, just chipping away. We mainly farm food grade grains, so lentils, malt, barley, and high protein wheat.
Do you have problems with snails down in your region?
Yeah, we do. Anywhere that's alkaline soils is great for growing lentils, but after sort of 25 years of no-till farming, very little cultivation, no burning, where snails are a big issue.
Yeah, it blew my mind. They're actually pretty common over in England as well, on the family farm over there. They get snails as well, going up their crop stems as well. Something we don't have to contend with in central New South Wales here.
Yeah, no, they are a challenge, and unfortunately we've created this great environment to grow crops in what is low rainfall country. But the snails, once you take the cultivation out, they just explode. And obviously we're growing food grade grain, and so they just can't be there. So a lot of management. Yep.
The French must love your flour then.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they do, but they are a challenge.
Very good. So looking into your family operation, your farming operation, you've never looked back since you got married when you were 25, but been in your young 20s, you would have had some challenges. Where's Maitland? Is it Peninsula?
Yeah, Yorke Peninsula, really tightly held. And obviously the centre of the peninsula is 500 mil rainfall. So, I came back to a sort of a 500 hectare family farm and just hard yards, really, just didn't really have enough land to make a go of it. So worked off farm, worked a couple of jobs for 10 years, and eventually we started farm contracting, and then we started share farming, and then we started leasing and leasing and leasing, and finally we've been able to buy a reasonable chunk of land for our area. So we've just had to chip away, really.
I think that's the case in a lot of areas where farmland's getting hard to come by with all the good stuff in the good areas. People are hanging on to it for that capital growth, I suppose. But all of your farming career, that leads you into around your 40s. You've given up the local sport. What sort of sport were you playing? Were you playing Aussie rules? AFL?
Yeah, I played Aussie rules really only for 4 or 5 years until I was in my early 20s. So, and then sort of work took over, and I think we had kids pretty young, and so you start going to kids sport, and really, then you don't focus on yourself. And at kids sport, I think like everywhere, we'd sort of have a hamburger for lunch and watch sport, have a few beers, and then have a counter meal, and I probably found that when I got into my 40s, I just started to put on a bit of weight, and even in day-to-day life around the farm, I just found I was puffing. And eventually my wife, Belle, said, look, you're snoring a lot. And I had a sleep apnea test, and I think that was a bit of a catalyst. That the doctor just said, look, you haven't got sleep apnea, you just need to lose a bit of weight. So, so something had to change.
And for you, well, for me, it's probably the same sort of timing of that community sport finishes, especially being on farm. Sort of give away the sport because I can't have bad shoulders and farm at the same time, or be out financially as well. It's pretty tough to be bringing in the dollars as well for the farm if you smashed yourself during sport on the weekend.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, yeah, we sort of had to push on and make a mile with the farm. And I was a pretty shit sportsman anyway. So, yeah, it just seemed to be easier to focus on the kids and, yeah, and work, really.
Yeah, sort of that isn't it? If you're mediocre, you may as well just pull out and focus on something else if you're not going to be the actual athlete. But talk to me about Fat Farmers. It started in the area of Maitland. Who was involved? How, how did it start? And obviously the doctor called you a bit pudgy in the beginning, but what was your mindset to get across that line to lift some weights or go for a run?
Oh, well, I think initially I knew I had to do it. And we actually took a couple of weeks off and took the kids to Ayers Rock. And so I was climbing Ayers Rock with our kids, and obviously it was pretty steep and it was hot. And that was probably when I thought enough's enough. I'm puffing like a big black Alsatian and I just need to change. So came home, and at that stage there was one bloke at our local gym and I think about 50 females or something. And so I just joined old Heaney, the fat farmer, in the gym, and I just couldn't believe it just only took a few weeks, and cardio improved, and I felt better, and it was just yeah. So anyway, we sort of thought, oh well, rather than two of us, we might as well get a few more. So we invited a few more people, got up to about five, and we just enjoyed the social outlet that it provided, and eventually we'd have a coffee after, and so yeah, then we sort of thought, oh well, we might try and get a few more people in, and of course, what do you do in Australia? Put on a barbie, so we started pulling a barbie on the footpath, and pretty unconventional, and we'd bring in a few old Holden Utes or whatever cars and have a muscle car morning. So eventually it became sort of commonplace for blokes to go to the gym in our little town, so it was good.
That's good, and that's probably the birthing ground of Fat Farmers. Who is the wizard that came up to call it Fat Farmers?
Well, it's probably me, to be honest. And that year, the by now we sort of had 4 or 5 families a bit involved, and the City to Bay came up, and I hadn't run a step in years, and so we thought, oh well, we might get a few T-shirts printed called the Fat Farmers, and we did the City to Bay, and I don't know, it was we had a bit of a run and rest policy, so we all sort of ran over the line together, and it was one of those punch in the sky moments where you thought, shit, I didn't think I'd be doing this, and that probably prompted me then to think, well, could we share this with some other communities, really?
How would you sort of identify for other farmers out there that they need a change in their own lifestyle? Like we get stuck in the tractor um, because we want to make a profit that year. We want to grow the food. We want to get it done before that rain's coming in. How do you identify that you need to change your lifestyle, or do you need to change it at all? How did you do that?
Well, I think there was probably a few health things creeping in, really. The sleep apnea and the puffing and all that sort of thing, and the doctor. But probably, yeah, and I couldn't really participate in stuff the kids were doing, and obviously that was the Ayers Rock experience, and you, so whereas now obviously I can pretty much do anything. I can match our young staff on a grain shovel. I can go water skiing. I can run 12 k's at the City to Bay. So I think just feeling like I was missing out and probably losing my youth. Um, yeah, so that was probably what prompted that change, I think.
Has there been a fair bit of like mindset to get around the sort of hurdles that your brain was telling you not to worry about it, not to go to work out? So, like, how far is your gym? Is it 5Ks or 20, 100?
Yeah, look, we're lucky it's only sort of 10 k's away or something. But I think what I didn't realise until I did it is this connection between exercise and I don't know if it's endorphins or whatever it is and mental health. But I actually found once I'd done it, I actually had more time in my day because I had more energy. So it was really it ended up being counterproductive. I could take a couple of hours or 2 or 3 hours off farm a week, but I was actually getting more work done. And yeah, so and to any farmer that sort of makes sense, really. So, but that change and moving out of your comfort zone and what you've traditionally done is obviously a bit tough.
Yeah, I think like just getting that sort of last rep out, knowing that you can do a little bit more, lift heavy weights. You come back into the farm headspace a little bit refreshed as well. You've got a bit of momentum behind you and a little bit of serotonin in your blood as well.
Yeah, I'm pleased you pronounced that. Yeah, absolutely. You just feel a different person, and on day two after doing a bit of exercise, you're physically sore, but it's good sore, and you think, oh, this is it just drives you to, I suppose, do more. And I think if you're ever contemplating changing your diet, once you change one part of your life, it's easier to then to say, oh, look, I might have an alcohol-free day today, or I might just change my diet, and rather than having a pasty for lunch, I might have a sandwich, and it sort of starts to snowball a bit. And it's always a bit of a challenge between work and time off, but eventually it's just part of your routine.
Unfortunately, we can't always get a pasty this far up north from South Australia, so we have to go for the pie. But for those, you'd be around the sort of average age that I sort of feel, not in general, the average age is 58 in ag, but sort of for those farmers with kids and everything. Talk to us about your routine? How much do you work out? What sort of things do you do? What do you focus on that like allows you to be the best on farm? Because when like I got a home gym here, we went to the gym. My partner's PT. She doesn't PT me. Um, but to do the things that help you on farm, is that what you're trying to target? And in
Yeah,
life?
I think for us at the gym, it's not a lot of weights. A lot of us have got busted stuff, knees, backs, whatever it is. So it's really just a bit of cardio, um,
Yep.
and just repetitive stuff. So it's nothing. We're not trying to lift 120 kilos, and and it's very modified. And I suppose with the fat farmers, we don't set out to really. There's no stereotype like so we do a workout twice a week, 6:30 in the morning till 7:30, and have a coffee. Hopefully, make it to work by 8. And and we've got young kids in there that are 22 or 3, and we've got blokes that are 65. So. But what it is the social side of it's just refreshing to meet new people, and eventually, to be honest, you end up with a whole group of mates, I suppose, or another support network you know that you can just discuss things with, and whatever's topical, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, or injuries. So you end up building this whole sort of this whole sort of another group of mates, and it's probably a bit like I know a lot of people that played a lot of sport. That's something they really enjoyed. But and this is a similar thing, really.
Yeah, 100%. For fat farmers, like as your group, what's your role on the committee? It's committee, isn't it?
Oh well, more recently, now we're an incorporated body.
Yep.
We're just registered as a charity. We've got a board of directors with some amazing people on it. So and I was chairman of that board for a while. I'm probably stepping back a bit now. So and we're about to put on. We've had a chief executive in Tessa who's been great. She's sort of had a lot of experience in non-for-profits. So
Yep.
but now we've got 20 groups. I think 20 groups pretty much in SA, and we're looking at a couple over the border. So now we're really going to push on and try and go national, and hopefully have an impact in more communities.
We might have one popping up in Central West New South Wales. So I was keen on doing a sort of farm fitness group, or just what you do to meet up socially and everything, but sort of bind us together by being better farmers, more fitter as well. So I might have to start up the chapter for the Dubbo region. But over the span of fat farmers, what sort of key milestones are you able to actually calculate or measure what sort of impact fat farmers has had so far?
Probably not really, I suppose. You always have those, just within our own little town. I think we've changed that stigma around males, actually exercising, and coming to the
Okay.
local gym. But yeah, you see life changing sort of outcomes every day of people that really were reclusive and didn't leave the farm, and and now they're potentially that's just part of their week, and started playing sport, probably better. Uh, they put a lot more effort into their family, and just that whole life change, I suppose. Sorry, mate, I've lost you.
You're not this for fat farmers. It's pretty similar to what this podcast would be. There's a lot of underlying value there that flies under the radar for mindset, our physical health, mental health, that goes to benefit our farms and also our communities. What's some stuff that you've sort of recognised in your own community? How has it helped? Like during that drought, you would have been continuing on as fat farmers. Did that help bind you together a bit?
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. Well, I think you just have that network of people around you, um, and I don't know, when you exercise together, I think you just have slightly different conversations that you have in the pub. And I don't know why. I think you have injuries or whatever's going on. And I suppose, I don't know. I try and encourage people to go and go to the doctor once a year and have an annual inspection or do whatever you do. So I think it's just a bit of a forum that sort of is based on your health, really, and that probably includes your mental health. And probably the only other thing we try to do as an organisation, we've got some great ambassadors. So any time there's a local function going on, sometimes we don't hold a lot of our own, but we have a few. But if a mental health speaker's coming to town, well, instead of getting 11 people, we might get 200. And
Yep.
and I know one of our sort of defining events was when the Naked Farmer Ben Brooksby was travelling, and the same thing. We just sort of we put together an evening and had a cracking photo with 20 blokes and had a men's health night for 200 people, and so I think it's just it's engaging small segments of your local community to focus on particularly men's health and well-being. But in saying that, the groups can be whatever you like. Some are family walking groups, some are cycling groups, some are mixed. In our little town, we also often have a Wednesday night session that's more of a family-focused session. So, but it is, you're right, it is hard to measure, other than the individuals I see sort of come through, and that's the bit that I see people come in that can't do a push up, and all of a sudden they're running the city to bay, and and I think in our industry, Jack, we get these reclusive farmers that never leave the farm, and and to drag someone in, and and just see them really learn another life and start playing basketball again or whatever it is. It's pretty powerful stuff.
And it probably drags your headspace off the farm as well. That's probably a lot of why you're going back to the farm a little bit refreshed as well. You're not banging out, shit, I should have fixed that fence, or my yield should have been a lot higher this harvest. How are we going to cover that from off last year's, or didn't meet our budget to our actuals and everything? That probably plays a huge role.
Yeah, it does, and generally we're all dealing with the same stuff. But and I think one point of difference is if you go to the pub, there's alcohol involved, and and I love a beer like everyone else, but this it's a healthy environment where you're really not waking up the next morning with a thumping hangover. You eventually get home refreshed and think how good was that. So yeah.
Do you see that like fitness, our physical and mental health sort of gets left behind in farming? Like it's all talking about ag tech, the latest technology coming to farms when really we need healthy people to be running these. We can't be drunk, hungover, unfit, broken shoulders, broken legs to actually run this kit that they're trying to sell all the time. The farmers need to be quite present as well.
Yeah, that's right. And as an industry, like we're embracing technology and automation, and we everyone's got a quad bike so they don't have to walk, and everyone fits an A-frame so they don't to a ute so they can tow the thing, and and even in the livestock industry now we're seeing livestock handlers and all this stuff to really so we don't break people and to reduce risk and keep our staff and all that stuff. But ultimately, as an industry, we're now not as healthy. And I think once we got a mobile phone, well then it's basically like having a computer in your pocket,
Yep.
and social media. So we never switch off, and and so we're really looking for this massive productivity gain, but in doing that, our people are probably they aren't as healthy. They're certainly not getting that mental break from devices or technology. So yeah, it is a bit counterproductive. And if you can just do something aside from work and get off farm, or it's great.
As it translated to the Maitland community, the forefathers of fat farmers, down to your tucker box, you've got a bit of a healthier tucker box. Your smoko's looking vibrant, or like it's a balance of what we're doing.
Yeah, look, I think when I get under the pump, I just love eating fast food, and yeah, I'm a bit of a shit eater for want of a better word. So, but I think you understand the difference, and so yeah, and look, even if you're just supporting your unhealthy lifestyle, it's actually better than not. So, but yeah, diet all becomes part of it, really. Yeah.
Certainly. Um, how have you made time to fit this into your routine? Is it just because the other farmers are encouraging for you to get there as well, and you don't want to sort of let them down with your accountability? How, like physically, and in your diary, how have you actually fitted it in? Whether you got harvest or you got your downtime, doing office work or kids, other commitments, you need that hour or two. How did you make it happen?
Well, and you don't always make it happen, but I think, and what we've particularly done with our session is that it's paid for all year round, so it's always there. So you're right. There'll always be someone go, and and if it's a damp morning in harvest, will you just make the time? Sometimes we're staffed to a pretty reasonable level. I just make it a priority. So
Yep.
yeah, and I think you've got to gear it mornings or evenings, whenever really most suits you. And probably what we found for our groups, it does take a while to work out that balance and, of what days, what nights works. Yeah. And yeah, so that's sort of what we do.
You're a morning or an evening gym goer?
Yeah, mornings, yeah, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm 55 now, so I just find that yeah, by the time I'm sort of done in the evenings, and Bill and I might go for a walk or something, after tea, but I'm probably not looking to thump out a gym session. Whereas in the morning, I find I'm fresh and keen to have a crack at it.
Superb. So we'll wrap this up. Two fat farmers having a yarn. But for yourself, what was one piece of farms advice relatable to your fat farmer's journey that you were given throughout throughout it that sort of spurred you on, or within the farming game? What was that for you?
Oh, sorry, mate. What was that? I'll just have to have that again. Sorry.
What's one piece of farms advice that someone's passed on to you that you've sort of taken under your wing and ran with it?
Oh, shit, Jack. Advice. I'm going to have to think that through a bit. I can't. Do you mean in sort of terms of my?
In terms of your community or like your parents or something, what was something that keeps you going? A bit of a quote or whatever that you live by.
Yep. Right. Do you want to start that section again? Is that how you do it?
Yeah, all good. So what's one piece of farms advice that someone's passed on to you that you've taken under your wing and you run it by?
Oh, look, I think for me, it's probably surrounding yourself with good people. And I didn't really ever get the opportunity to, finish year 12, but didn't go to ag college. And I've sort of been that person. I only know what I know. And so
Yep.
I've just found that as we've sort of, as I've surrounded myself with better and better people, I've just learned and learned and really pushed on probably, not only on the farm, but as a person. So I think that's the one for me.
And what's the best piece of farms advice you'd like to pass on to others? And I think your physical and mental health would be a good one. But up to you, of course.
No, I think look after yourself. We've been really lucky. We've got quite a lot of staff now and long-term staff. Look after your people, and we actually look after our community. And we've got a small community. We're pretty light on volunteers, so yeah. So I think that holistic community. I think that's it for me.
And or you've got a few sponsors sponsoring the organisation now. I saw Hardy on there, I believe, and there's a few others. Do you know them off the top of your head?
Yeah, look, we've been lucky. Hardy have just recently upped their sponsorship.
Bootstrapped, and I hope this gets the word out to other farmers out there, whether they want to start up their own sort of fat farmers chapter or just to spur them on their farm to do a bit of physical activity, get that heart rate up. So how can we start our own fat farmers community? Is that a way that we can get this across Australia for someone listening in today? Bootstrap, but doing a huge effort for the community as well. One last question that I have is if you read books at home and whatnot, or over your lifetime, is there any books that have helped you out, or some that you've liked reading? Or if it's not books, yeah, I tend to go on trips as well, and just as you're going down the road, just start to think of renovating that paddock, what you would run in there, or shit, you could put some more sheep in there. Surely, why haven't they done that? Or that's a good bumper crop there. I'm just sort of window shopping, but for farms. It's pretty cool to do as well. Yeah, certainly is. Well, Ben, Fat Farmer Ben, thanks for coming on to the podcast. Always starts a conversation, like the word fat farmers. So I think you're doing a pretty good job as the inaugural sort of team down there at Maitland, and I really hope it does grow as the initiative to all the districts of Australian agriculture. Fantastic stuff.